What?
A few inches later.
Okay, that's cool. That's really awesome. Generic intro into TF2. We're back with some more random TF2 videos. Today we have how to fight every class in Team Fortress 2 as engineer and win by Uncle Dane. This will be the third Uncle Dane video I think I've actually watched. You want to check out last week's video, which is where I got the suggestion for this one. It was from TF2 Animated Shorts Recap by Uncle Dane. I'll leave it right up there. Also link down below in the description. Also being a playlist on my channel with all of my other Team Fortress 2 videos, and also even have a stereotypes reaction for Soundsmith stereotypes on its own. But I've loved Uncle Dane videos so far. They're very informative. Engineer is one of the classes I struggle with the most as a relatively new player to Team Fortress 2. There's just so much to engineer. The menus are just so overwhelming. I like Battle Engie a lot. That's one class I do enjoy. I like Battle Engie more than regular Engie just because it's a way less complicated class. But I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I got this one from last video's comment section, and by people liking it and people suggesting, that's how I know. I read every single comment anyway, so thank you for all the suggestions. So leave some down below for what you want to watch next Friday. Patrons get them a day early. Shout out to the patrons. Let's go ahead and jump into this because this is kind of a long video. All right, now I'm going to learn about engineer, one of my least played classes and one that I struggle the most with.
Teleporter going up.
Oh, yeah. Dispenser? Curtis?
Dispenser going up.
Everybody loves the dispenser. This is not a generic intro. This is a fantastic intro. I don't know if it's quite as good as Lethamir's, but it's still good. It's pretty good.
There are a lot of really fun things to get good at in Team Fortress.
That's a Smash song.
Aiming your
I'm
gun,
reacting to the Smash trailers.
Jumping, familiarizing yourself with the maps, trick stabs, headshots, meat shots,
also
air
gaming
shots,
channel.
memorizing how long it takes for a health pack to respawn, memorizing the stats of 100 different unlockable weapons, memorizing the monologue from Meet the Scout every night before bed. The list goes on. But in my opinion, an underappreciated part of playing TF2 is something that can be found in any video game with characters with different toolkits, matchups. Training your brain to look at a character you see in front of you, look at the character you're currently playing as, examine the loadout they're currently running compared to the tools you currently have equipped, and think to yourself, there's about an 89% chance that I lose this matchup, and then you die immediately. Well, that's a lot of fun. But what really makes this process engaging is when you're able to use your knowledge of what your class is capable of versus what the enemy's class is capable of, and use your tools to
I've never used that
larger advantage and come out on top. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video, and because I've played a whole lot of engineer, that's the perspective that you're going to be getting.
My god.
This is how to fight every class in TF2 as engineer.
Is there ones for not
Before you can start homing your matchups, you'll have to work on two important skills: aim and positioning. I won't be getting into the specifics of these because they're very much a broad part of getting better at TF2 in general.
Yes.
Not really specific to any matchups, but instead an overall important thing.
I think someone said I have like
31
hours on the game.
Aim is something that will develop with good old-fashioned practice. The more you shoot your gun, the better you'll get at it. This takes time, but you can always sharpen your mechanical skills using community tools like MGE or TR Walkway. Positioning, on the other hand, is something that develops with good old-fashioned experience.
I don't know how you even get
After you spend enough time in this game, you'll begin to develop game sense, meaning you'll be able to figure out the most optimal times to get yourself into advantageous positions before your enemy does. Engineer, being a squishy, medium damage, medium speed class on his own, heavily relies on being in the right place at the right time. Much like every class in this game, it's much easier to fight someone who is unprepared to fight you back. Compared to aim and positioning, Engineer's class role of building management is primarily going to be a single-player activity, and protecting your buildings from specific classes is the only point at which your matchup knowledge would come into play regarding your supportive building.
That's a spy.
However, your sentry gun is going to be an important tool when fighting other classes. A great example of this is a tactic that can generally be applied to almost every class matchup, one that you'll see mentioned often for the rest of this video, the distraction sentry. As I've said before, it's much easier to win a fight that someone is not prepared for. What that boils down to is, if someone isn't looking at you while you're fighting them, chances are you're gonna beat them. The engineer just so happens to come with a shiny object for people to look at instead of you, so abuse it when you can. Forcing your enemy to take 2 versus 1 fights where one of them is perfect aim will automatically give you the upper hand in almost every fight. So baiting your opponent into that situation, and at the very least threatening them with the possibility of it, can be enough to tip the scales in your favor.
They hate the sentry so much.
A general skill that can help significantly significantly in the matchup's game is understanding your limits and using that knowledge.
I don't even know
to
what
pick
that
your
little
fights when
laser gun
possible.
is.
Being able to take a look at a situation and say, I can't handle this right now, I'd better retreat, is the best way to retain your longevity and can often lead to better opportunities that will be advantageous for you instead.
Oh, he's fighting a sentry and dead. Versus scout.
Fighting a scout
Speed.
as an
How do you
engineer can
combat
either
the
be one of
speed?
the hardest
Be
matchups
squishy.
or the easiest, depending on
not
one
really.
simple
He's
factor. Are
light
you
work.
standing near your sentry gun? As a wandering Engie with no building, sometimes scouts just run up and kill you.
Think fast, chuckle nuts.
As they're supposed
That's
to.
what
If
most
you're
times
good
I
enough
do.
at
I don't
aiming your shotgun,
usually get a sentry
sometimes
down.
you can just hit more shots than the scout and win without any help. But scouts are fast. They hop around a lot, and landing a shot on them is supposed to be difficult. But when your sentry gun is nearby, scouts are almost always going to be easy pickings. I mean, most of the time you probably won't even have to do anything. And sometimes you probably won't even notice a scout was there until he's already dead.
Yeah, and
Scouts
you
are
just see a
supposed
corpse.
to be difficult to hit, but sentry guns are also supposed to be able to hit everything that they're targeting. Scouts run fast, but that also means that they run into sentries fast. And they run into sentries a lot. I'm not kidding. Sometimes it seems like they do it on purpose. Running into my sentry gun.
Literally.
Over and over again.
Probably why I hate sentries. Because I love playing scout.
God, there's nothing left to bury. I get this weird feeling that scouts actually really like sentry guns, which is why when you happen to get into a confrontation with a scout and you happen to not have a sentry gun built nearby, just go ahead and do the scout a favor and build a sentry gun for him. 9 times out of 10, the scout will forget all about you, the human player, and go for the NPC that you just conjured. Look at him. He loves it. In all seriousness,
I don't think he loves it. I think he hates
scout player's attraction to sentry guns is out of hate rather than affection. And an intelligent scout player will simply just not engage
who likes
with you
sentries?
if you have a sentry gun nearby. Building a
just
sentry
runs
at the
away.
start of a fight can often force the grudge-filled scout to aim at something
he's actually
other than
gonna
you.
charge.
But often it can also be useful to start
damage.
your engagement with a scout in an area without your sentry and then fall back into it, giving the scout player false
bait him.
confidence that they can chase you down and finish you off,
no.
but instead being met with their worst nightmare.
Dead. Okay, yeah. I
When
feel
it
like the
comes to
answer
this
to a lot of
matchup,
these are
I'd
just
call
going to
the
be
soldier
sentry.
the quintessential soft counter to the engineer. His rockets not only do massive damage to both the engineer and his buildings at practically any range, but he's got too much health for Engie to effectively go toe-to-toe with him in a typical engagement. To put it simply, the engineer just doesn't have the damage, the health, or the mobility to avoid getting consistently blown up by a soldier when they meet on the battlefield.
Soldier's really good.
Sometimes in the same vein as scouts,
Good soldiers,
an overconfident rocket jumping soldier can end up just getting caught out by a sentry gun or shut down by the frontier justice after he destroys it. But most soldiers know to take their time against fortified Engies, and he even has a rocket launcher that is practically designed to turn buildings into scrap. So when it comes to protecting your sentry gun from soldiers, there's no easier unlock to abuse than the Wrangler. Whether you're tanking explosives or manually shooting down the spamming culprit in the distance, wrangling your sentry gun is the simplest way to prevent any single player from taking down your nest. You could also use the short circuit to achieve a similar effect, but in my opinion, using 65 metal to prevent damage that can be healed with half that amount is not a great value. Instead, I think the short circuit is much better utilized to protect your other buildings, your team, and especially yourself from rockets. Using the short circuit in combination with the shotgun or panic attack can give your survivability in a soldier 1v1 the boost it needs to put yourself on an even playing field.
What is the effect?
In my experience, most soldier players either don't equip the shotgun
Doom?
or forget they have one, making closing the distance much easier so you can land the damage required to kill a soldier while preventing damage to yourself. Every once in a while, you might meet a soldier who remembers that rockets aren't his only source of damage, but that can also lead to some interesting mind games in future engagements. And even if you find yourself in a situation where there's no way you could possibly win a fight against a soldier, the short circuit can also be a very useful tool for escaping back to safety at the cost of your entire metal supply. And hey, the short circuit is still busted.
I mean, you can't take it with you.
The payload cart. Might as well abuse it before we lose it, right, Valve? Right?
Wait.
Please, Valve. Another niche thing you can do to help your longevity versus soldiers is to practice surfing rockets. What that basically means is that you intentionally rocket jump using the enemy soldier's rocket, and you jump away to safety. It's not exactly the most reliable thing, but if you find yourself in a pinch, trying to time a crouch jump with the soldier inevitably shooting at your feet can sometimes get you back out of there.
That's
in general,
really
when
awesome.
Fighting classes like the soldier who thrive from splash damage, taking the high ground while in combat can completely deny them of the very thing that makes rockets so powerful, and will force them to hit you with a direct rocket instead, or at the very least, waste a bunch of their time.
Okay, Pyro.
Now, unless you're playing Battle Engineer or otherwise roaming the map looking for weird places to hunker down, you probably won't be running into very many Pyros. Sure, just like the other two classes we talked about, sometimes
they find me.
Pyros just
Always.
walk into your sentry for some reason. But being less mobile than a scout or a soldier, and with the extra health to take a couple extra shots, Pyros typically steer clear of established NG nests. Since they're essentially a strictly close-range class, it's usually difficult for Pyros to deal with a sentry gun besides spamming flares to little effect. Since engineers usually have access to a dispenser, getting set on fire from across the map is usually annoying at most. But if you find yourself wandering about, getting rushed down by a Pyro can often prove fatal. However, the engineer has a large advantage over the Pyro in that his shotgun is a burst damage weapon, while the majority of the Pyro's weaponry requires sustained fire to be effective. This means you can control the damage you take and the damage you deal by using corners and choke points to your advantage. And once again, utilizing the distraction sentry when you find yourself getting chased down can give you the time that you need to take down the Pyro safely. Forcing the Pyro to deal with the sentry gun can also help direct some of his flames elsewhere while you finish the job. When fighting a Pyro, it's practically impossible to not get set on fire unless you simply keep yourself out of the effective range of the flamethrower, which is the simplest way to cleanly deal with a Pyro. However, most maps tend to be close quarters, and a smart Pyro will usually try and get as close to you as possible before you have the chance to attack. This is where you should try and control the situation as much as possible. Baiting a Pyro into a sentry gun is a very reliable way to secure victory, and try your best to play around sources of health such as dispensers, medics, and health packs to ensure the effects of afterburn are minimal. Quite possibly one of the more weirdly effective ways to approach a fight with a Pyro is to just remember that fire doesn't kill you nearly as fast as 2 quick shotgun shots do. So if you have enough health to do it, you can often just tank some fire and put your shotgun in their face. 2 point-blank shots with the shotgun can technically kill a Pyro with ease, but I find that it's much more reliable to pull off with the panic attack.
Okay, Demoman.
Demoman
How do you combat a
is the
Demo
engineer's
Knight?
hard counter. There's not really any way around it. He's practically put on this earth to... So don't be surprised if I don't have very much advice on how to fight Demoman as
there's so much
beyond
damage
most of the stuff
like
I've already said regarding the soldier. Yes, you can use the Wrangler to tank a lot of the Demoman's explosives when he attacks your sentry gun, and you can often use the short circuit to shut down a couple grenades and allow you to close the distance for a few clean meat shots. But the most important thing to remember when fighting a Demoman is that you never, never want to be this distance away from him. You want to be this distance away from him. It might seem counterintuitive, but getting right up in the Demoman's face is the Achilles heel to the power of his explosives.
Unless they have a giant sword.
As opposed to Soldier, who has access to the very popular gunboats, a huge majority of the Demoman's weapons do self-damage, and most Demoman players know this, and will often avoid even attempting to hit things that are close enough for them to take splash damage from. And a lot of the time, if you can get close enough, you can do enough damage to them to allow that self-damage
We're going out
to
together.
be a finishing blow. Similar to finding a Pyro, if you have more than 100 health, it can sometimes be worth it to tank 1 pipe while you quickly blast them for 2 clean shotgun shots. Something that's even easier due to the self-damage that they'll also take in the process. And while the short circuit can be useful for mitigating some of that damage,
but this is a hard counter
get within blasting range, the arc of the grenade launcher and the sticky bomb launcher can sometimes make this tactic unreliable compared to the same strategy being used against a soldier. However, the short circuit is also perfect for clearing traps, allowing you to approach a Demoman that was relying on his stickies to take you out. Disarming a trap and quickly rushing down the dude watching it is quite possibly one of the most effective things that you can do against Demoman, and is one of the few small victories that an engineer can reliably take against his class counter. Oh yeah, as for Demo Knight,
run.
Yeah, let's just say Demo Knight is not nearly as big of a threat to the engineer as the regular Demoman is. See the chapter on Pyro for a similar advice, I suppose. Moving on.
But I love Demo Knight. Heavy. How do you go
having
against
a ton
heavy?
of health and dealing a ton of damage is actually one of my favorite classes to fight in TF2.
Because he's a big
even
target.
As the engineer. Because his minigun is a sustained fire and he just sits there screaming, he's the closest thing to a boss fight that you can get in this game, which makes him all the more satisfying to kill as that short little hard hat man. Fighting a heavy as the engineer actually requires the combined strategies of almost all of the previous classes that we've discussed so far. Similar to the Pyro, he has a sustained fire weapon, making it ideal to peek him around corners and only subject yourself to his bullet stream when you're also putting shots in him. Similar to the Demoman, it can be beneficial to get as close to the heavy as possible, but for different reasons. Because heavy players rely on tracking their targets with their crosshair to do damage, the heavy's effective range ends up being around here, much easier to track. But if you stand right about in a
hallway.
Heavy's face and strafe around him, switching up your direction occasionally, you're essentially stepping out of his field of view
You
long
run the
enough
risk
to
getting
where he's
punched
forced to
with boxing
constantly
gloves.
reorient his crosshair by a large amount. And because the Heavy can only move at a snail's pace while he's firing, it's difficult for him to keep you from doing this until you've pumped him full of lead. And once again, because of this fight being close quarters,
I want to
the
play
panic
this game
attack
so
shines
much more
against
than I
Heavies
do.
compared to the stock shotgun. And finally, similar to how standing on the high ground denies soldiers of their
Uncle
splash
Dane is
damage,
here. Who?
against a Heavy, you'll want to do the opposite,
Sad noises.
specifically when there's a ledge involved. The Heavy wants to shoot at you directly, so if you use the environment around you to put your character's hitbox behind something, that's less of you that the Heavy
Uncle
can
Dane's
hit,
very
and will
smart.
force them to be
He
even
really
more
is.
precise than usual. Another thing you can do when fighting Heavy is to just listen to him. Just listen. Don't worry, Heavy, I'm here for you. I'm listening, brother. More specifically, listen
The
to
Heavy
his
is
minigun,
dead.
which makes a very distinct
he's
sound
revving
when
up.
revved up. When the minigun isn't revved, that means it's going to take him 1 full second to start doing damage. Knowing this, you
Yes.
can often make your move based on when you do or
Yep.
don't hear the
Oh,
minigun revved up. This
didn't stand
strategy,
a
of course,
chance.
doesn't work against the Tomislav, which has a silent rev. However, you can sometimes
Oh, it
bait
does?
the Heavy into unrevving his gun anyway by pretending that you're about to leave and then come back to give him the finishing blow. Overall, listening for the rev and going in when
any
the
of y'all
Heavy
do
is
that?
vulnerable is the key to really getting the jump on the big guy. Just make sure you don't have exactly the wrong gun for the situation, aka a non-crit boosted Frontier Justice.
You and me, partner.
Very specific. Oh, engineer versus engineer.
is often relatively rare. If you do end up interacting with the enemy NG, chances are you'll be seeing more of his buildings than the guy who's been placing them. And the engineer class is ill-equipped to
True.
deal with buildings from the other team, and when it comes to dealing with a nest, it's
That's-
usually better left
God,
up to
it's
your
so
soldiers
annoying.
and Demoman. But that doesn't
That
mean
is
that
so
you should
annoying.
ignore enemy NGs
Dual
completely.
sentries.
There are a few fringe things that you can do to assist in taking down sentries or shutting down the NGs building them. Despite not having too many long-range options, combining the Wrangler with a temporarily placed sentry gun can help pester an out-of-range nest quite effectively. Otherwise, keeping a close eye on the kill
Hiding
feed
behind
for
it.
when the enemy sentry has been destroyed can give you the go-ahead to get
Like
in
an
and
arrow.
do some damage. Because let's face it, an engineer without a sentry gun more often than not is an easy kill. A large majority of
Yes.
engineers in TF2 are focused on little else besides rebuilding their stuff, lying to the world around
And I
them.
struggle
so
at
if you can
building
make your move
stuff,
when they're distracted
so-
by their chores, getting the jump on an engineer can be a breeze. When fighting against engineers who play more aggressively or employ some of the tactics that I've been going over in this video, for instance, I have one overarching tip. Shoot the engineer. Seems simple, right? But if you focus exclusively on taking
that's
down the
exactly
gun, but tragically die before
strategy.
you're able to turn your attention to the engineer building the gun in the first place,
He'll just
then you
build a
might
new
as well
one.
have just done nothing because the engineer is
Exactly.
just going to go build another one. It's much
Duh.
more efficient to shoot the guy who not only is currently shooting you back, but is also moving around and will continue to move around
But
after
he's
you
still
die.
controlling.
Shoot the person moving around doing stuff. And when he's dead, then you can shoot the not person thing
The
that
thing is-
doesn't move around so much. It's much easier. The only
Very
time
smart,
where shooting
yeah.
the gun before you start shooting the NG is when you have the time to, such as when they're not actively trying to kill you or running away. Or when
Yeah.
they're doing weird things like
Which-
running the rescue
I'm sorry, does he have a
ranger with
small
the
head?
sentry? What the heck? Even if the
Oh, no,
NG
it's
is
just the hair.
fortified by a sentry nest, you should still shoot the engineer before you do anything else.
As he walks
Worst case
in,
scenario,
Uber.
you die before you can kill the sentry gun, but now the guy who heals the sentry gun can't do that anymore, and you can
And somebody
politely
else
ask your
cleared up.
teammates to finish what you started.
Oh my god.
Overall,
What?
engineer versus engineer often boils down to who has better aim with a shotgun, who is making the right decision when it comes
As most
to focus
class versus
fire,
class
or
stuff.
who is even paying attention to the world around him at all. Attempting to fight an enemy level 3 sentry gun nest as the engineer is extremely difficult, and it's better to play around them than
Yeah,
playing
of course
against
it
them.
is.
However,
God,
keeping
that
a
is
close
so
eye on
annoying.
your team's progress on taking care of them can allow you to move in,
I'm curious to
make
see what he
plays,
says about
and
Spy.
eventually win the game.
I'm really curious what he says about Spy. Okay, medic. This would be easy.
The
Medic's
medic
not really.
can be one of the easiest classes in
Yeah.
TF2 to kill, but also
For any
the
class.
hardest. It all depends on the situation. For the engineer, though, catching an out-of-position medic is about as easy of a pick as you can get. And in casual mode, you'll definitely run into your fair share of lost boys running around wondering where their team went. However, it's not so much the medic you should fear, and rather what a relatively experienced medic can do to you and your buildings. The stock
That
Medigun's
was
Uber
not-
charge is hands down the most powerful thing in TF2. Being able
Yes.
to make someone invincible for 8 seconds spells death to you and your stuff if you're not careful, especially when combined with a soldier or a Demoman. Uber charge lead
Heal that
pushes
up.
are designed to make short work of your nest. So once again,
That's
don't expect me to
what their
have
point
too
is.
much to say about fighting against it. Realistically, the most you can do against an Ubered combo is to stall with the Wrangler and hope your team distracts them long
And then
enough
their
to come out of the
Uber's gone,
situation
yep.
unscathed. But as the battle
Wow,
there's
that
actually
was
quite a lot of
very
good
bad
that you
play
can do
from
for your
them.
team if you can position yourself yourself well and use flank routes effectively. Getting close to a medic is the hard part, but you'd be surprised how fast a medic goes down to a shotgun. One of my personal favorite weapons to use when looking for a med pick is the Frontier Justice, which can do upwards of 180 damage at close range and a decent chunk even in the worst circumstances. Medics are busy guys and they don't have time to worry about if there's a crit boosted engineer just casually strolling by, so use that to your advantage. The most entertaining thing about medic players when playing engineer, however, is how so many of them seem to think that an Engie is basically a free Uber saw. So if you can exploit that stereotype, the med picks will literally come
stereotypes.
And lastly, despite an engineering being a bit of a meme, I do think that it actually can be a viable strategy if not for the advantage that it gives you for intentionally positioning yourself precisely where medics tend to stand. And even if you don't land the killing blow on a medic, forcing them to use Uber in an unideal situation is the next best thing to dropping.
He just popped that just to save himself? That's insane. Sniper.
Now, this is probably the only class in this list that the majority of my advice won't be how to fight the class themselves, but rather how to avoid the class entirely until you're in a position to guarantee a kill on them. The sniper is the only truly long-range class in the game, so if they can see you far away, you're instantly risking your life. Hell, they don't even need to be far away to kill you. So yeah, as lame as it sounds, just try not to be seen by snipers. Like, if you see a dot on the wall, don't cross. Just don't ever show your face in that sight lane ever again because the sniper is now existing right there. Just go. Just go upgrade your dispenser, I guess. I mean, some snipers just happen to be out of position and can be punished accordingly, but this is truly the only situation in which you have the upper hand on the enemy sniper. Really close and really right behind them. The true answer to fighting a sniper isn't even really to engage in a fight with them. It's to use the flank to go all the way around everyone else and pump a few shots at them while they're scoped in elsewhere. You can sometimes make the call based on past engagements, whether it's safe to challenge certain snipers' aim, but if you're dealing with a real sharpshooter, a real aim hero kind of guy, then there's very little that you can do once they get your sights on
wow, they just died in spawn.
That the aim punch happens to knock the crosshair off course long enough to close the distance or get killed by the second sniper that's always there for some reason. It's generally a good idea to wait until the last possible second before firing upon a sniper that doesn't see you, since it's entirely possible for them to turn around and quickscope headshot you before you can do enough damage at medium range. Obviously, you should never stand completely still and avoid walking in a straight line when you can help it. And because sniper is such an impactful and oppressive class simply by existing, it can often be worth it to sacrifice yourself for the sniper pick in the same way that it's worth the trade for the medic. Whether you're clearing out the flank to get at the sniper or infiltrating the backlines in a more creative way, a sniper pick, especially a particularly skilled one, is worth its weight in gold. Or Australium. Just don't walk into the sight line.
Australium's expensive.
Stay there. Just don't go anywhere. This is fun, right, medic? We're having fun. I'm just gonna upgrade my dispenser. This is fine.
We got Spy.
Any long-time subscribers to my channel may remember that one time that I made a 12-minute long SpongeBob reference disguised as a guide to dealing specifically with the very last class that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah.
For the sake of not repeating myself entirely, I won't get too much into detail here about the stuff that I've already covered in that video. So if you want to hear more about the Engineer-Spy matchup, I highly recommend that you go check that out. A lot of people probably would call the Spy a hard counter to the Engineer, but I tend to disagree. While the Spy possesses tools that are designed to destroy his buildings, there are many things that the Engineer can do to heavily stifle the effect of a spy on his buildings, his team, and himself in general. Of course, there's the acronym SPAS, which stands for Stay Away, Pretend You're Busy, Awareness, Help from your teammates, and the Sapper Technique. Almost all of these tips can be applied quite effectively to handle a pesky spy, but I'll go into a few more specific things that you can do when there's a spy creeping around here. But first of all, sometimes a spy's just gonna get you. You're not Superman, you can't do everything at once. However, spies love to try and get away with stabs that they've already went for repeatedly. Most spy players have patterns, and if you can anticipate those patterns, you'll be catching them in the act in no time. This includes tracking a spy when they're invisible. In order to do this, you should think like a spy.
Such a bait.
Where's the most likely place that the spy would run off to? Spies like to run towards health packs, ammo packs, and sometimes there's no other viable way for them to escape. Spies love to hide in plain sight, and you can easily reveal them by spamming your shotgun around. The short circuit can also be a very helpful tool for revealing the spy's location, although it's sometimes a bit of a waste to use all of your money this way. The most underappreciated way to keep a spy from getting away with murder is to simply listen to the sounds in the game. The decloak sound is very distinct, and you should treat it like an alarm bell that a spy is going to be on you at any moment. Also, look for spy stabs in the kill feed to alert you that it's time to keep a lookout for suspicious characters. The spy that recently cloaks after a kill typically won't stay invisible for long. In reality, the hardest counter to a spy is simply communication.
Spy at the shutter door.
If you can do something as simple as say where a
Communication?
spy
What's
is,
this?
his effectiveness essentially drops to nothing.
Last.
On certain maps
Spy's
and in
dead.
certain
Been
situations,
too
it's
long.
even possible to hear an invisible spy's footsteps, which is clearly just over-the-top spy bullying in my opinion, but I would be lying if I said it didn't feel good. I'm sorry, Scuba, I swear I'm not cheating. I just have headphones on. Another great tool for dealing with spies.
Wait,
is
so
go
he thought
after
he
your
was cheating because of
teleporter
that?
is the Eureka effect. Being able to teleport to your exit even when it's being sapped can be the last thing a spy would expect, and
Oh, you
replacing
can-
the entrance at spawn
I guess
is
a
just
sapper
as
is-
easy. And remember
takes
to be
time.
careful when a spy is sapping the entrance to your teleporter. It's okay to stand on it while you unsap it, but as soon as it's active again, you should get away from it pronto. Some spies like to attempt to trick the engineer into getting telefragged once the sapper is removed, so don't fall
had that
for it.
happen to me.
And even if you don't have a shotgun equipped, shutting down a spy with the Wrangler is also a valid option, and the Rescue Ranger ain't half bad at making her own spy wall.
He's pinned to
In
the
fact,
wall.
The Rescue Ranger is a pretty decent spy checker, since you'll always hear that satisfying crunch when hitting a disguised spy with a bolt. Listen
Oh.
to that. Music to my ears. Well, that's all
That
of
is
them.
a very satisfying
That's,
crunch.
That's all the classes in Team Fortress 2. If you're playing Engineer, hopefully you've learned enough from this video to
God, I wanna
not
play
be
this
as
game
easy
so
of a target
much.
anymore. So thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you nieces and nephews next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, because he's uncle. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, niece and nephew. What? Panic Attacks actually good? Well, I actually got this video suggested to me by the comment section of last Friday's video, so definitely leave down below what you want me to react to next, and if you see one that you agree with, definitely leave a like on that to let me know that you want that to be happening next. So I'd greatly appreciate that. Learned a lot about Engineer. I had no idea some of his weapons did that, and most of it was stuff I kind of already knew about the classes. I did not know that Demoman was the hardest counter to Engineer. I would have thought it would have been Spy because of Sapper and stuff. But, I mean, Uncle Dane is kind of the Engineer guy, so I'm definitely going to believe what he says and how to fight these characters. And this game, 7 months ago, not super old either, so it is current with, like, there's none of the stuff has really been balanced or changed since then. So everything he said still stands up to today. Like I said, I'm a relatively new player, and Engineer I think is probably my least played class. I think it's one of my least played classes just because it's so overwhelming. There's so much stuff. There's so many menus, and I just don't know what I was supposed to be doing as an Engineer because it's a very unique class. It's so much unlike any other class I've ever played in any other game ever. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you around in the next one. Like I said, Stereotypes will be out on Sunday by Soundsmith. It's actually the finale, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Hopefully I made your daytime a little better. Until next one, take care, and cue the music.
We were playing